intervention counselor and a rehab advisor. Now, the subject of intervention is not one that many of us know very much about at all, unless perhaps you've seen the television show Intervention. I can tell that it will be a subject that very few of our viewers know much about. Would you mind starting us off with a brief definition of what an intervention is?
Sure. An intervention is a planned strategy which actually is rehearsed, and if professionally done, will bring off an exact result. And that exact result should be a discovery on the person who is usually drug addicted, life's out of control, is ruining the family dynamic, but they discover that they need to make a major change in their life, and they are willing to do that for its own sake. That would be the exact intervention done correctly. And it also essentially saves the family from the ruin that the addict or the addiction is creating in their lives. So it has a couple of folds of purpose, but it is an exact technique. It is not something you just throw together and say we're having an intervention today. It's actually something that's rehearsed.
Now, one of the things when I was looking through the research, I realized, you see, I have myself a personal experience with addictions. My father had gone through several addictions throughout his lifetime, and intervention was not something that I was very aware of at the time. Having been a family member, having to deal with these types of things, I realized that really the family involvement becomes so important. Can you maybe walk us through what a family is feeling in the case of having a loved one who's addicted?
They're really confused. A family is, they're in such turmoil that things they normally wouldn't do, they're doing. For example, they're probably helping the addict out by feeding them, having them in their home, assisting them in some way, continuing to love the individual, which is all fine, except that all those actions will not bring a person to hit what's called a bottom, or a realization that they can no longer live that way. They have to make a change. So unfortunately, the love of a family actually is preventing the addict from actually seeking a change or rehab and recovery and completely reversing the cycle of addiction. So a family is in a really rough place. They're in a horrible maze, if you will, which doesn't seem to have a way out, and a professional intervention is a way to actually help them get out and save face and save a family member and themselves.
In my case, we had many different family members that cared a lot about my father, and all had very different reactions to the intervention process. Can you talk about the different types of reactions that a family might go through?
Yeah, it's amazing. I'll specifically now, the reactions a family member would go through when they realize they have to have an intervention. Mm-hmm. That reaction, or is that what you're talking about, or something else?
Well, I'd really like you to go into what the family is going through before an intervention actually occurs.
Okay, understood. Some of the family members know that if they just wait long enough, the person will have a realization and they will do it on their own, and they're hoping that will occur. And as long as they're safe and they don't get into harm's way, it'll be fine. Other family members are so angry that they will not talk with the person who's abusing drugs. They've been stolen from, lied to, cheated. The person's killing themselves, they can't stand it anymore, and they basically back away. They'll have nothing to do with it. Another family member may just be numb and can't think with it. Say they don't care what they actually do. Children especially get very misemotional, and it's completely reactive, and it can't really be predicted. Loved ones as well. So you have this mixed bag that is highly charged.
Interesting that you would say that. We certainly went through all of those dynamics on my side of things. But I'm curious, the addict itself, it's not really the drugs or the alcohol or the cigarettes or whatever it is. Can you talk about what the real addiction is?
Great question. So essentially, what is addiction? It's a loss of self-control that also results in greater harm to self and others and other dynamics than benefit. So you need all those factors. You need a loss of self-control. Not all the time, just in certain cases where the person says, I'm not going to do that, and they do it anyway. I'm not going to borrow money, they do it anyway. I'm not going to use this time, they do it anyway. So loss of self-control and greater harm to others and themselves. Now the addict often isn't aware of that harm to others, because one of the, if you will, benefits of drugs is it makes a person unaware or less aware of the actual damage they're doing. It numbs them down. It makes them, in the old saying, they become less aware of what is happening, and they live in their own little dream world. Other things are going on at the same time that reality is happening, and a lot of those other things that are going on are justifications that the addict or the drug abuser or alcohol abuser is actually making up, or actually truly sees and believes. That's why it's a problem. That's why, in my opinion, you really need a pro to work with. You're dealing with a minefield of trouble.
Amazing. I really am curious, had we had an intervention counselor to assist us with it, what would the process have looked like?
Okay, it's a very simple process, which has to be done correctly. It's really simple to disarm a bomb and find bombs if you know what to do, but it's highly dangerous to do it wrong. You want to do it right. So the very first thing is you decide on what is your outcome. What do you want? What rehab is the person going to? What is the exact objective? Do you have a place where they can go immediately once done? So you have a target to go through. You have to acknowledge that there's ruins. Something is ruining the family. Why are you doing the intervention? Why is the family doing an intervention? Why does the addict need help? There's a ruin there. Secondly, you have to identify all the pressure points in an addict. What's very uncomfortable, what are going to be some of the troubles that the family will have. Define exactly what they're going to say, when the intervention is going to be done, rehearse it, and then always have a plan B. Because even the best run intervention, sometimes an addict will say no, but then 2 or 3 days later, when they see the consequences of saying no, they turn around and actually say yes. So the key thing I have to stress to all the viewers and people who are watching, you have to be certain about your technology, your methods of intervention, because sometimes it takes several days or weeks before the person turns around. I actually have personal accounts of amazing turnarounds when the person waited a week or two and had the family member said something, done something, taken that phone call, send the money, it would have been for naught. But the only avenue the person had, the addict had, was to speak to the interventionist, go to rehab, and I've seen unbelievable people who shouldn't have gotten better, it shouldn't have worked for, it worked for when done exactly correctly.
Now, unfortunately, this is a very charged subject and I'm learning a lot, but we are out of time. So I have to say thank you so much once again. And if I'm correct, it's drugrehabadvisor.com where they can find out more information. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you. I really do appreciate it.